Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks again for joining us for another one of these conversations, just exploring a particular aspect of the life, the mission of MIE. And it's great to have Lizzie and Emma with me today talking about the Children's and Families work. They're part of a team that also includes Rachel. And the whole point of our families ministry at MIE is really to seek to support families in the life of our church. Because actually, when you look at the Bible, this isn't kind of an office that you see a lot of precedent for in the Bible. So Emma and Lizzie, why don't we start with that? Why don't we start with just talking a little bit about your role and why we put such an emphasis on it? You know, there's a team of 3 of you who are on the staff team, and probably just on numbers, it's the area of ministry that most people from the church would be directly involved in, working with families and children's ministry. Why is it such an emphasis for us here at MIE?
Good question. I think from our point of view, we just see the nurture of children within the family environment as the best place to be nurturing that knowledge and that faith in Jesus. When you think about how many hours children of all ages spend with their family unit, especially at the moment, they really are getting most of their knowledge, their understanding of the Bible and who Jesus is from their parents and their wider church family. So we just feel like that's really worth investing in and helping families to have the tools to be able to do that effectively. Lizzie and I both have children, and we've both we're going through that journey with our own families, and we know how difficult it can be and how having support from the church can really help with that journey.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, and the other thing that we do is we're really passionate about taking the love of Jesus out into our communities as well. So we don't just keep it to ourselves. So we run things, Messy Church and that we invite people to, and we also do quite a lot of work in our local schools too. Right.
So, I mean, let's talk about that. It's you know, this idea of supporting the family as kind of a God-ordained structure within the life of the church, within human society. You know, this is how God wants children to be brought up in the faith, how he wants them to be trained to be following him. And you read all about that in the early chapters of Deuteronomy. But in terms of supporting that and kind of working with that as a church, what are some of the particular things that we do, first of all, kind of within the life of the church to support parents in that? But then also, Lizzie, you're talking about everything we're doing has this gospel element to it. We're wanting to reach out and proclaim and demonstrate and declare the love of Jesus to families and children in our community. So if we could maybe just hear a little bit about what we do with that as well. Let's talk first of all about what that looks like pre-pandemic, and then we'll see how that's kind of morphed and we've adapted it into, you know, what we're doing now as a church in the midst of lockdown.
Yeah. Pre-pandemic, that seems like a long time ago now. So within the church, what we were offering was Sunday groups. Most Sundays we would have groups for the children to go to from the age of 3 up until they finished primary school, where they'd have sort of age appropriate learning and games and activities and crafts, all based around a certain Bible passage. So we would do that on a Sunday. Also, all age services happen once or twice a term, where the focus is very much on making the worship accessible for people of all ages. We also run a sort of small home group for young people, I suppose you would call it, called Connect, which takes the older children in primary school in year 5 and 6 and nurtures their relationship with Jesus through that transition period until they start high school. So those are sort of some of the things that we do with our church family to help support them.
Cool. And Lizzie, what about people who are not yet part of the church family, sort of the wider work in the community?
Okay, so so pre-COVID, we had lots of events going on. So we were running toddler groups at St. John's. We had 2 toddler groups every week. We were a year into our new Messy Church program, so we were running Messy Church on a Saturday every couple of months. and also going into schools. We have a team, an open the book team. We take assemblies into primary schools, we tell Bible stories to the children. We've been involved in doing prayer spaces in school as well, and various RE lessons. We've been invited into schools to talk about what it means to be a Christian. And we've also done various experience days on different themes, Easter and different things like that as well for primary school children.
Right. Now, this is quite interesting because you both kind of, your first taste of kind of children's and family work was actually when you really stepped up to lead the holiday Bible club that we used to run at St. John's a number of years ago. But I mean, that's sort of not mentioned around. I mean, what was the thinking behind sort of shifting out of kind of the holiday Bible club model into sort of more of a family oriented thing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and actually took a lot of prayer and talks and decision making. We just felt that, I mean, the holiday club was a success. If you looked at it purely in terms of numbers, we would get 100 odd children come to us for the Easter holiday club. We did it over 3 days, and for those 3 days we had a fantastic team of volunteers. We we told the children about Jesus. They learned, they played together, they shared food together. It was fantastic. But we just felt that that's where it stopped. So we were being able to talk about Jesus to the children, but we weren't getting any engagement with the wider family. And so we changed tack, didn't we, Lizzie?
We did. So we kind of felt that when we were doing things like at the end of a holiday club week, we were inviting families along to church. We weren't really getting much uptake on that. So we thought it's very difficult if children are involved in something to then get their parents to then take them to something. So we decided to change tack and go for the whole family together. And this all came, we went to a children's ministry conference, I can't remember how many years ago, and we heard a lot about this idea that you kind of go for the whole family in one go, really. And that has really worked for us as well.
Right. So you've seen a good uptake on that as a model of outreach and engagement with the community.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, it seems to be easier to get whole families to come along and be engaged. Yeah.
Right. And I suppose that works. So if they then kind of move, as it were, into the life of the church, they're coming as a family, and that model of parents taking responsibility for evangelism and discipleship of their own young people, their own children, becomes a much more natural thing just for them to step into as well.
Yeah.
I mean, how's this all changed then during lockdown? Because obviously there are just huge amounts of restrictions in terms of how we're able to do ministry. So what does families ministry look like kind of right now for MIE?
It looks a lot like this. So yeah, we've had to go online for most of what we do. So I mentioned about our Sunday groups that we were doing in real life. We can't do that at the moment. So we've gone on to Zoom. And we just have 2 groups, one for the younger children up to age 8, and then one for the older children who would have been in Explorers, as we called it in real life. And that's working really well. We meet before the morning service. We meet at 9:30, and I take the younger group, Lizzie takes the older group, and Rachel kind of floats between. And we don't get huge numbers, but we are getting the same children back week on week, which is really lovely. And we're able to sort of take them through the series that we're on, and we're gaining something from them being there week on week. I think when we did them under normal circumstances, you wouldn't get many children who were there one week that had been there the week before. So that continuity was slightly disrupted. So this feels quite good in a way, although you are limited on what craft and games you can do staring at a Zoom screen. So we've ended up with lots of scavenger hunts and lots of drawing and holding up and an awful lot of chair dancing like this.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's quite fun.
And if people want to, maybe weren't aware that was happening, or there's something, I think, a bit of a transition happening at the moment, whereas Whereas I think for a long time, people saw this as an interruption to normal life, but actually beginning to think, you know what, this is going on a lot longer than we anticipated. Maybe we need to put some structures into family life just to help keep our spiritual input going. So if people wanted to join that now, they're, I mean, those groups are still open to anyone. How do people get involved in that?
So they can just send us an email. Our email address is families@mie.org.uk, and we'll make sure they get sent the Zoom link every week.
Fantastic. And what about outreach, Lizzie? Because obviously, you know, things are happening at schools. They've got all kinds of restrictions going on as well. So what's our schools ministry looking like at the moment?
Okay, well, obviously we are very limited, but what we have been able to continue all the way through is our Open the Book assemblies, which we have videoed on Zoom, funnily enough. We have got quite good at videoing things, yes, like this, and having props and even backgrounds now. So yeah, so we record, so with the same team, we record the stories and we send them into school. So at the moment, they are being used in schools for the children who are at school. The links are also being sent home to parents so that parents can show it to their children at home as well. We did, before Christmas, we were able to take the video. One of us was able to take the video into school and introduce it in assembly. Obviously we're not going to school at all at the moment, so yeah, so we are, it's nice that we are still managing to have that contact, and the children are still seeing our faces and not forgetting us, and still obviously being told the Bible stories, which is the most important bit. But yeah, it's frustrating not having any kind of personal contact with them. You know, as Emma was saying, the Zoom groups are really nice, we're building relationships with those children, but what we haven't got with schools at the moment is any kind of contact, personal contact. Yeah, but it's good that we can still do something.
You mentioned sort of Christmas there, Lizzie. I mean, what was going on from a families team perspective over the whole Christmas period? Because again, you think about normal Christmases, as it were, and things like the crib service is one of our highest attended services of the whole year, and obviously that sort of thing just wasn't going to happen in 2020. So what did our ministry to families and children look like over last Christmas?
Okay, so we started just before the beginning of Advent. We made up Advent packs for all our families, all the families from church. I think we did about 50 packs, Emma, am I right?
Yeah.
And which included a real Advent calendar, a Jessie tree kit, and various other activities, or make your own crib, various other activities that you could do as a family throughout Advent. And we delivered those to families. We knocked on lots of doors and had lovely chats with people, but obviously not everyone was in, but yes, but we did. And we had lots of feedback from people saying they really appreciated that.
Good.
And the other thing, as you say, the crib service, always the well attended and one of the highlights of our year, but we had to go online, didn't we? So yes, so we recorded our crib service, which took 2 hours to record and was only 20 minutes long in the end, but was great fun, and yeah, had some good comments and well received, hopefully.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that's worth mentioning, is that doing everything on Zoom and recording actually it's a lot more work for you as a staff team to be presenting that sort of stuff and producing it. I mean, I imagine it's easy to think through all the negative things that you know, kind of obstacles that the pandemic and lockdown has presented to the families ministry. You know, obviously reduced access to schools, access to people, all the relational stuff that goes on. You know, we've already just talked about the amount of work, so much more work needs to go into these things. But has there been any like real positives that have come out of this from your point of view?
Yeah, there really has. And one of the things that we've really been pleased with, right at the beginning of the first lockdown, Rachel had this great idea to meet as a children's team on a Monday evening every couple of weeks, just to keep in touch. So we included everybody that has anything to do with children's ministry across our 3 sites, and that's a lot of people. And they've been really well attended. Again, we've had the same people coming, and actually what it's kind of morphing into is a sort of support network, and we're finding that we're able to talk about logistics and things, but also have some really good Bible study and prayer time. And for a lot of the people who volunteer with our children's work, they might not be in a home group, for example, or kind of part of the in a home group. So what we're finding is that that's kind of, we're hopeful that that might develop into something longer term,
Right.
which will be really positive and means that we can journey alongside more members of our team. And we've just got to know each other really well. And you can tell, because then when we host a group together, you can just sense that, I think, that we're getting to know one another better. So that's been fantastic, and I feel like we're a smaller team now, without a doubt, but the team we've got are incredibly invested in the ministry. So yeah, that's been really good.
Brilliant. And that wider team, I mean, it's been great to see the visual slots and services with the puppets, and seeing the stuff that is being put out from Messy Church. It seems like there's a lot of people who are doing an awful lot of work behind the scenes. I mean, how's that going?
Yeah, no, it's been really good. We've been really encouraged by the amount of people who have been willing to step forward and do things. It's been great. And the people who are willing to put themselves on camera as well. We all know it's not easy. So yeah, it's been really, really good having people willing to do a craft for Messy Church, record themselves doing it, so it doesn't just have to be us all the time. And when we've had packs to deliver, like I was saying about the Advent packs, we've had people who have willingly stepped forward to deliver things for us as well. It's just really been so nice to see how many people are really committed to this ministry, basically.
And it looks like it's a lot of fun as well. Every time we see you on Zoom, you're smiling and happy and excited to be there.
We're always happy and excited to be on Zoom, but especially when we're with our puppets. You mentioned the puppets, but we've had so much fun with puppets. And if you'd have told us this time last year all the things we would have done, we'd just not believed you.
I get more requests now for people to see Ned and Ted than I do me. There was one Sunday in particular that Rob had preached, and I had done a Ned and Ted sketch, and I definitely got more feedback. So that tells you something.
It's humbling, that sort of thing. It's humbling. I mean, obviously, people hearing about this, we're going to be wanting to be praying for you guys and looking to support this area of our ministry as much as we can as a church going forward. How can we do that? What can we pray for? And are there other ways that people could get involved if they wanted to?
So I think the main thing to say is, can people please be praying for our families? It's a really hard time at the moment. Families are struggling with all sorts of challenges, and making space and time for Jesus to be in the centre of all that is challenging on a day-to-day basis. So prayer for our families would be really appreciated. And I think also for us as a team, that we can keep it fresh and not get too jaded with looking at a screen all day, and that we can still kind of get across that real passion that we do have for sharing Jesus with people, even though it is nearly all virtually at the moment.
And I think also just to pray for the families who were coming along to Messy Church, who we haven't really been able to have any contact with. Obviously, we've sent links to Messy Church and things like that, but some people we didn't even have contact details for. So just praying for those people that, as and when we are able to meet in person again, that they will still feel able to come back. And one thing that we have been chatting about recently, as you say, how could people get involved, is I think if people within the church, if they know families, to make contact with them and ask people what they can pray for, not just thinking, oh, I'll leave that to the families team to contact all those people. This situation has gone on for so long, much longer than any of us ever anticipated. So, I think I just think that would be really nice if people, just contact people they know.
That's interesting, because when we think about staying in touch with people, we immediately think of maybe some of the older members of our church family who are self-isolating and so are particularly maybe feeling lonely or isolated or vulnerable in a particular way. But you're actually saying, no, this is a really stressful time, pressured time for a lot of the families in our churches, and to be particularly, I suppose, sensitive to that, praying for, supporting, reaching out to families is at least as important.
Yeah, I would think so.
Brilliant. All right, plenty there for us to be thinking about, praying about, getting involved with. Thank you, and thank you to the teams that you represent. I mean, it's just, as it were, just the two of you here talking with me on this interview, this conversation. But actually, behind you, as it were, there's like lots and lots of people who are involved in so many different ways. And I think this is just a great opportunity to publicly say thank you to you and to your teams for everything that you do week by week to support families and to support the children who are growing up through the life of MIE. Thank you.